Just this week, the magazine that comes out, published by the Ontario Teachers Federation, had a list of 10 things that parents could do at home with their children to help keep them busy and learning at the same time. Since we already know that it's going to be at least until the fall when schools sort of resume normally, that means there's lots of time to acquire some skills about teaching and learning at home. And one of the goals of my series of talks is about how to integrate technology. So one of the things that this article suggested was to encourage children to bake. Now, we've all seen pictures and stories and movies where kids are baking with their parents. That's one aspect. That's not very high tech. That means getting out the flour and the sugar and the rolling pin and the baking pans and the butter and all of that. But suppose you wanted to help children to expand their thinking skills and to bake at the same time and integrate technology. So how could you do that? How could you integrate technology into something as simple as baking cookies with a elementary school age child? Well, let me tell you. First of all, you can suggest that you and the child open up the computer and log into Google. You can negotiate with the child what kind of cookies you want to bake in advance. Chocolate chip or oatmeal or banana or date or anything else. I'm going to use chocolate chip as an example. So the first thing to do would be to open up Google. I know, right off the bat you're saying, yeah, but Google can get them into big trouble. But you're not walking away. You're going to sit at the desk with the student, with your child, and you're going to type in chocolate chip cookie recipes. You'd be amazed at how many different recipes you would get for chocolate chip cookies. Just online. That's not talking about going into any cookbooks. Although if you did this physically with books, you would find all different varieties. But we're using technology, remember? So open up one of the recipes that you found using Google and read it with the child and let the child read it to you rather than you reading it to them, and then make note of the temperature that you have to set the oven at, how many cookies it makes, and the ingredients. But then open up another recipe and ask your child or children to compare the two recipes. Does it use the same temperature? Does it use the same amount of flour? Does it use some other ingredient besides chocolate chips? Does it use bananas? Or does it use applesauce? Or does it use oatmeal? Does it use walnuts or pecans? Now, depending upon the child, you can ask the child, well, what difference will that make in the cookie? Will it make it chewier, sweeter, harder to bite into? Will it make more cookies or less cookies? And then if the child doesn't know, you go back to Google. Okay, so let's read. What's the difference between a pecan and a walnut and an almond? Where are they grown? What's their size? How are they used? And so on. Are they less expensive or more expensive? If you want a real test of that aspect, let them look up macadamia nuts and then ask them, why are they so much more expensive than peanuts or walnuts? Why are almonds so expensive? So you see, you have a cycle. You start to talk and then you have to answer more questions. And then the child and you have to go looking further because you don't want to tell them the answers. You want them to find the answers. You make them type in the words and do the search. You have an opportunity to talk and compare and to think. That's the important point. They have to think about the answers. So what exactly makes a macadamia nut in a chocolate chip cookie more expensive than a walnut in a chocolate chip cookie? And if you were making them to sell, would you have to sell them for more? And why? And so it spirals until you have this huge big discussion based on one activity, baking chocolate chip cookies. Now, another aspect of that, so maybe you've never baked cookies with the child before, and maybe the child or children have never seen you baking before. So then you can go to YouTube, which you know, if you're watching this, you know is another tool online, and you type in baking chocolate chip cookies. And guess what you're going to find? You're going to find all kinds of videos that show how you can, step by step, how you can bake cookies. You can turn off the YouTube video and then ask the child to remind you of the steps. And if you've both forgotten, then you can go back to YouTube. So now you've used YouTube and you've used Google. And you've used Google for more than one thing. Now, just as an aside, because this is another thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is really easy, now we can talk about integrating baking and technology with the other aspects of STEM or STEAM learning. So STEM means science, technology, engineering, and math. And STEAM adds the art. So suppose you did this. STEAM, the S in STEAM, the science. Why do you need the temperature in the oven to be 350 degrees? What happens if it's not 350 degrees? Let's try an experiment and see. Let's see if we can bake the cookies at 375 or 425 or 350 instead of what the book says or what the recipe says. That's the science. And why does temperature make a difference? Technology. What happens if we use a microwave instead of an oven? And what's the difference? And the technology is also the use of the computer. The computer is a tool just like an oven or a microwave. So you're talking about the technology and how you've used the technology. And then you've got engineering. Remember I said how much would you have to charge for cookies if you made them to sell them? You've got engineering. You've got the production in order to make money. So then you can talk about how would you box the cookies, how would you price them, how would you advertise your cookie stand, and it spirals again. Art. So you're going to sell your cookies. Don't you need a sign? Doesn't the child need to put up a poster outside to get people to stop and buy the cookies? If the child spends the time designing the sign, that's art. What should be prominent? What should be on the sign? How should it be designed? How big should it be? What should the letters look like? Those are all artistic questions. And finally, math. You want to double the recipe, triple the recipe, half the recipe? You're talking about quantities and how you measure them. That's measurement, and that's also math. So there you go. We've talked about the integration of technology, and we've talked about STEAM. Tomorrow, another idea for you.